She looked at our fragile bodies and laughed. Her people believed humans were soft, too fragile to survive their crushing gravity. But when she saw us leap into the sky, defy gravity with roaring engines and gleaming wings, her laughter turned into wonder. We didn't just fly, we soared beyond what her kind believed possible. And when she reached for the sky with us, she finally understood, the real strength of humans isn't in our muscles. It's in our dreams. The first time I stepped onto Luray soil, my bones felt like they'd been poured full of molten iron. My knees buckled, my breath seized in my chest, and I had to grip the ramp railing so hard my knuckles turned white. The local gravity was almost double Earth standard, enough to crush an unprepared human like a tin can. They stood waiting for us below, a sea of towering cobalt-skinned figures with eyes that shimmered like frozen moons. Their faces showed no sympathy, only detached curiosity. In their culture, weakness was the worst kind of shame. They believed humans were delicate children playing at space travel, weaklings hiding behind machines. And maybe in that moment, I believed them too. Commander Eric was the first human to straighten up. He grunted, shoulders shaking, then rose fully, standing tall even as his legs trembled. The Luray watched him closely, whispers rippling through their ranks. A hush fell as Eric pulled off his helmet and tossed it down the ramp. "I came here to teach you something," he rasped, voice hoarse under the thick, crushing air. "And it won't be from the ground." One of them, a female, by her slender shoulders and narrower crest, stepped forward. Her name was Salvia. She was an instructor for young Luray pilots, though pilot in their language meant little more than land skimmers that hugged the ground like frightened insects. Her long fingers curled in irritation, her pale blue lips twisted in disdain. "Your bodies can't handle our world," she said in that sharp, musical accent. "Why embarrass yourselves?" Eric only smiled, teeth bright against his sunburned face. "Because we know how to fly," he said. Salvia tilted her head as if trying to interpret a riddle. To her people, flight was a legend, a metaphor in old stories, the domain of divine spirits, not flesh and blood beings. Their gravity-bound physiology and heavy bones made even the thought absurd. But we hadn't come to talk. The next morning, our engineers began unloading the lightweight frame gliders, human-made craft designed for Luray gravity, reinforced but agile, built from nanofiber and ceramic composites. Each glider looked skeletal, more sculpture than machine. The Luray gathered in silent semicircles around the landing field, eyes wide with suspicion and thinly veiled mockery. I struggled into my suit, the support exoskeleton locking around my thighs and spine. Every breath felt like dragging water into my lungs, but I refused to stay in the medical bay. I wanted to be there, to see the moment it happened. Eric gave the signal. The first human pilots ran, or rather shuffled awkwardly, to the launch ramps we'd set up on the canyon ridges. Their forms trembled, knees nearly buckling. The Luray jeered, calling out insults in their clicking dialect. Then the engines ignited. With a sudden roar, the gliders lurched forward. For a breathless second, it seemed they would simply collapse into the canyon, but then they rose, slicing through the thick air with surprising elegance. Gasps echoed like thunder among the Luray. Their mouths fell open. Up there, above the clouds tinged violet by their alien sun, humans turned in smooth arcs, dove and climbed in defiance of everything their watchers believed possible. They painted the sky with contrails, weaving bright loops that shimmered and vanished in the upper winds. Salvia stood utterly still, her hands trembling at her sides. I watched her eyes, so cold, so judgmental only moments before, transform into orbs of pure longing. When Eric landed, he stepped off the glider, knees shaking but triumphant. He met Salvia's stare and held it. "This is what it means to fly," he said. She didn't answer. Instead, she stumbled forward as if drawn by a magnetic force, her long fingers brushing the glider's smooth, sun-warmed surface. "It's not possible," she whispered, but her voice quivered. Eric only smiled. "It wasn't, until you saw it." That evening, a council was called. The elders of the Luray debated for hours, speaking in hushed, angry hisses about tradition and sacred limits. We heard words like abomination and heresy, but also hope and future. Salvia waited outside our encampment. She didn't speak at first. Just watched the horizon where our gliders had disappeared hours earlier. Finally, she turned to me. "Do you truly believe we could fly, without your machines?" she asked. I almost laughed. "Even we can't fly without something," I said. "But what matters isn't the machine. It's the spirit behind it, the refusal to stay chained to the ground." She frowned, her crest shifting slightly. Then she took a step closer. "Will you show me?" she asked. Her voice was quiet but urgent, like someone asking for a secret blessing. Eric overheard and nodded at me. She's your student now, he said. I didn't know what to feel. Pride? Terror? Both, probably. But I agreed. We started small. Exercises to strengthen her upper body and learn balance, techniques no Lu-Ray had ever attempted. I taught her to visualize the air as a living thing, to understand its currents and embrace its chaos instead of fearing it. Every movement was a struggle under her world's heavy pull. She collapsed dozens of times, bruising her cobalt blue skin, each fall punctuated by sharp, frustrated growls. But she kept coming back. She learned to trust the suit, not as a prison, but as an extension of herself. She learned to leap, even if at first her jumps barely cleared a handspan. She cursed me, she cursed herself, she cursed gravity itself, but she never quit. Then, one dawn, after weeks of silent dawn practices, she managed a running start on the test ramp and felt the first lift. Her feet left the ground for a single heartbeat, but it was enough. She landed hard, her knees buckling. When she looked up, her face shone with something beyond mere excitement. She was radiant. That same day, the elders issued a final warning. The humans were corrupting the youth. If we didn't stop, we'd be exiled. Salvia heard the threat and didn't hesitate. Then exile me, she declared. I will fly. Her words spread like wildfire through the settlements. The young ones, who had grown up hearing only of duty and gravity's cruelty, began sneaking to our camp at night. We had to double our training sessions, adjust gliders for different body types and strengths. The elders retaliated with restrictions, closed roads, confiscated supplies. But by then, the idea had already spread beyond containment. The sky had become more than myth, it was now a dream within reach. Salvia, once a strict instructor who had called us frail, was now the first to launch beside us at sunrise. I'll never forget the first real flight she took, her wingsuit spread wide, glider humming beneath her, face lit by a pale dawn. Her scream echoed through the canyons, not of fear but of triumph. From below, the elders watched, powerless. Their final line of defense, shame, had crumbled. As the day wore on, more Lu-Ray joined, each one taking the leap. And each time they rose, their world changed a little more. That evening, as we sat exhausted around a makeshift fire, Salvia knelt beside me. Her hair was wild from the wind, eyes sparkling like starlight on water. You humans, she murmured, voice soft and reverent. You came to show us that strength isn't in the bones, it's in the spirit. We thought you weak because you bent to your environment. But now, I see you do not bend, you rise. I couldn't find the words. Instead, I offered her a human-style salute, 2 fingers to my forehead, then to the sky. She copied it awkwardly but grinned wide. Above us, more gliders traced lazy arcs against the deepening purple twilight. The once impossible had become routine, even joyful. Tomorrow we would push farther, higher, faster, wilder. But tonight, we had already changed a world forever. And for the first time since we set foot on this heavy, unforgiving planet, I didn't feel crushed. I felt light as air, because we weren't just surviving here. We were teaching them to fly. Salvia woke me before dawn, her fingers cold against my shoulder. Even after weeks of training, the heaviness of Lu-Ray gravity still made mornings feel like crawling out from under a landslide. But there was a new urgency in her touch today, a trembling excitement that chased away my fatigue. Come, she urged, voice barely above a whisper. I want to see the stars from above before the elders stop us for good. I didn't argue. By now, I had learned that when Salvia decided on something, there was no force in the galaxy that could turn her away. Outside, the others were already gathered. Dozens of young Lu-Ray, some still wearing night cloaks, others still raw with fresh bruises from failed jumps. They formed a tight semicircle around our newest and largest glider, the culmination of all our experiments. It wasn't just a human design anymore. It was a hybrid, shaped by Lu-Ray aesthetics and needs, built to take 2 riders. Eric and the older pilots stood nearby, adjusting last-minute details. One of them gave me a thumbs up. I took my place beside Salvia. Her long fingers found mine and squeezed. I looked at her face, those moonlit eyes, that alien blue skin streaked with dirt and windburn, and realized she wasn't just an eager student anymore. She was my partner in the sky. When the launch signal came, we started running. Every step felt like wading through a swamp, but our momentum built, and then we soared. The ground fell away in an instant, vanishing beneath wisps of violet mist. Below us, the canyons spread like an open palm, rivers snaking through them like molten silver. The horizon curved in every direction, and the early stars glinted above, more vivid and numerous than I had ever seen on Earth. I felt her grip tighten as we climbed higher. She turned her head, mouth open in wonder. This "This is what you meant," she shouted, her voice almost lost to the wind. "This is freedom." I called back. We twisted, dived, and rose again, drawing wild arcs across the dawn sky. Behind us, dozens of smaller gliders followed, each carrying a young Lu-ray pilot on their first real flight beyond the canyons. Their shouts and howls echoed in waves of joyous rebellion. Far below, I could see the elders gathering at the launch field, their faces turned upward in dismay and disbelief. But they were too late. The sky was no longer a fable. The young had taken it for themselves. Salvia leaned forward, her voice trembling in my ear. "I used to dream of the stars as a child," she said. "I thought they were cold lanterns to guide the dead. Now I see, they are places waiting for us." "We'll get there," I promised. "One day, we'll go even higher than this." She laughed, and the sound struck me like sunlight breaking through a storm. After what felt like a lifetime suspended between worlds, we finally descended. The landing was rough, she misjudged the wind and we nearly skidded into a rock outcrop, but when we stumbled off the glider, she dropped to her knees and kissed the dust. The other young pilots soon touched down, each emerging from their craft with eyes wide and limbs shaking. Some sobbed, some laughed uncontrollably. In every pair of eyes, I saw the same wild spark that had carried Salvia to the sky. Eric approached us, helmet tucked under his arm. His grin was ragged but proud. "They tried to keep you on the ground," he said, nodding to Salvia. "But you took the sky and made it yours." Salvia rose slowly, still breathing heavily. She turned to the elders, who now stood at the edge of the field, watching with stern, defeated expressions. "We will not be chained anymore," she shouted at them. Her voice carried across the stone and wind. "You told us we were too heavy to rise. You taught us to bow to the ground. But today we learn to rise above your fear." A few elders turned away, shaking their heads. But others, the younger ones, hesitated, their rigid stances softening. Some even took tentative steps toward the gliders, drawn forward by an ache they had never allowed themselves to admit. I stepped forward too, standing at Salvia's side. "You thought humans were weak because we adapt, because we refuse to accept limits," I said, projecting my voice to reach even the furthest listeners. "But true weakness is surrendering to fear. Strength is dreaming beyond what your bones tell you is possible." Salvia reached out and took my hand again. Together, we raised our arms toward the sky, as if calling it down to meet us. For a long moment, the entire field fell silent. Then a single elder, a frail, silver-crested figure, stepped forward and touched one of the smaller gliders. Slowly, reverently, they traced a finger along its wing. The others watched, stunned. When they turned back to face their people, they spoke only 3 words. "Teach me too." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Then one by one, more elders moved forward, each brushing the gliders, touching the flight suits, asking quiet questions. The dam had broken. That night, we gathered around the canyon fires. Salvia sat close to me, her head resting against my shoulder. Above us, the stars no longer seemed like distant lanterns for the dead, they were gateways, invitations. "You know," she murmured, "if you can teach us to fly, maybe you can teach us even more. Maybe one day we can cross to those stars with you." I squeezed her hand. "We will," I promised. "And when we do, it won't be just humans leading. It'll be all of us, together." She closed her eyes, smiling. "You gave us more than wings," she whispered. "You gave us a new sky." And as I looked out at the quiet silhouettes of gliders lined up for tomorrow's lessons, at young Lu-ray sitting by the fires drawing sketches of flight patterns, at elders arguing over launch technique rather than forbidding it, I realized we hadn't just changed a planet. We had changed a future.